impurity, passion, evil desire, greed, which amounts to idolatry. Verse 9, do not lie to each other, but rather, verse 12, put on a heart of compassion, be kind, exercise gentleness and patience, bear with one another, love each other, and forgive each other. The church will only be as effective as its individual members live in righteousness and holiness. That bears repeating. Our church, Fellowship Bible Church, or any church, any local church, will only be as effective as its individual members live in righteousness and holiness. You know, we may have people who come to the church who say, oh yeah, this is a great church, they preach this, they do that, but if you're not living it, this church will not be effective. This is for all of us. What is true of the individual Christian is true of the church. A church that's grounded in sound doctrine is made up of individuals who are grounded in sound doctrine. A church that's spiritually healthy and living in righteousness is made up of individual Christians who are spiritually healthy and living in righteousness. Don't think of yourself or your role in this church lightly. As individuals in the body go, so goes the body. And that's why it's my aim as a teacher in this church to focus on spiritual depth, my own and yours. Because I know that as we draw closer to the Lord ourselves, we will be more effective as a church, and we will be accomplishing what God desires for us. The deeper a church goes spiritually, the broader its influence will be around us. And God will take care of the breadth. God will take care of the growth, as he always does. Paul, for his part, planted the seed. Apollos watered, but God gave the increase, as it says in 1 Corinthians. So if we want to grow, we each need to pay attention to our personal spiritual growth and holy living. Without it, the preaching of the gospel is stifled and it's ineffective. And as for Titus, Paul was telling him in chapter 2, verse 1, to speak these things to the church. And actually, if you look at chapter 2, there's bookends. Verse 1, he says, as for you, speak the things which are fitting for sound doctrine. And you look down at the end in verse 15. These things speak and exhort and reprove with all authority. But as he speaks those things, he, in this chapter, is also making that connection between sound doctrine and practice. If you look in verse 1, we just said it. As for you, speak the things which are fitting for what? Sound doctrine. Verse 2, older men are to be temperate, dignified, sensible, and what? Sound in faith. Verse 7, in all things show yourself to be an example of good deeds with purity in doctrine. In verse 10, not pilfering but showing all good faith so that they will adorn the doctrine of God. So teaching is critical. We need to understand the truth. And Titus was exhorted to speak the truth in verse 1 and verse 15. Speak these things. Tell the church. Talk to the church. And so that's the introduction to this chapter where Paul gets very specific in his instruction now about holy living and the response to that doctrine. And I want to share an important portion of that instruction with you this morning in verses 1, 2, and 3. The first group that Paul addresses in this chapter, this critical chapter about walking worthy of the Lord, is older men and older women. Older men and older women. Now, there are people of all ages here this morning. We just demonstrated that. This is interesting that we're split almost 50-50 between older people and younger people in our church, which is good. If you're in the younger crowd, pay attention, because these things are going to apply to you shortly, because we're all marching toward age. But for now, the focus this morning is going to be on older people, the aged, the elderly. It really is a shame, in my opinion, that our American family culture doesn't generally show respect for or cater to those that are older. Now, the nursing homes do. There's a lot of money involved in that. But as far as respect and honor, it's not generally there. Our culture is very self-centered, I think, and utilitarian, and generally it doesn't acknowledge age. It's a young person's world. It doesn't esteem age. The younger generation often views aging parents, aging relatives, aging employees as a burden more than anything else, especially if they require physical care, and I've got to spend time with that. It's seen as an interference to their pursuit of pleasure oftentimes. Older people are often forgotten, are they not? And because of this, I think as we age, as people age, they often feel that they're a burden, that they're not valuable. You just get that idea. And that many times, maybe depression and even social isolation can occur. And let me be clear here. I mean, there are realities to every phase of life. We all know this. You know, I'm learning more about it every day of my life. There's things I just cannot do anymore. Ron made mention. You guys want to play basketball Tuesday night? And he says, my wife opted out. You don't want to play, Dottie? I leaned over to my wife. I said, you want to play? And she just smirked at me. I don't even want to play. I mean, I want to play, but I can't, because I know what's going to happen if I do, especially if I play with the younger guys, because I'm going to want to go as fast as them. I'm going to want to start and stop as quickly as they do. I'm going to want to keep up with them, and I'm going to hurt myself. It's just not going to work. Paul says, when I was a child, I thought as a child. I behaved as a child. When I became an adult, I put off childish things. Ecclesiastes wisely instructs younger people to serve the Lord in the days of their youth before the evil days come, because they're coming, when the body begins to fail. And so, we all have to recognize there's physical limitations to aging, but there are no age limits or restrictions to serving the Lord. There are none. We'll be serving the Lord in eternity. And whether you're old or young now, that should not stop us. If our primary aim in this life is to please the Lord and to serve him, if our aim is the same as the psalmist, which says, as long as I have breath, I will serve the Lord, then as we get older, the possibilities really should only increase for the older generation. Everyone's financial situation is different, and I get that, but I would venture to say that by the time we reach an age where we're financially stable enough to retire, then the time to be able to serve the Lord would increase greatly. Simply by virtue of the fact that there's no more 40-hour or 50-hour or 60 or 70-hour work week, right? They're no longer present. But the older crowd or older generation in the church is often overlooked or neglected and somewhat segregated as a slice of church. And there's generally not a lot of interaction between the older generation and the younger generation. And I really think that should change. The older people of our church have been through so many years of faithful service within the church. They know the history of the church. They've seen people come and people go. They've seen pastors come and pastors go. They've seen buildings come and buildings go. And there's a lot of knowledge that needs to be passed on. The first two groups that Paul addresses in this critical chapter in Titus chapter 2 are older men and older women. He first addresses older men and then addresses the women. And remember what we're talking about. Speak to the church about holy living, about being sensible, about you as a church being a vitally, evangelistically successful church. And the first two groups he deals with are these older men and older women. So I guess if you find yourself in that category, then Pay attention. Sit up. This is for you. And don't think that somehow being older makes you lesser of a member of this church or a less important part of the body. Far from it. Far from it. The Bible has a lot to say about aging and growing old, and I want to frame what we're going to say in Titus by some of those things. So if you'd take a little journey with me for a few moments and turn to Job chapter 32. There is a consistent theme throughout the Bible that people who are of age should be respected and honored. Should be respected and honored. In Job chapter 32, I'm in Psalms, that won't work. Job had 4 friends. 3 of them were aged, 1 was young. And Elihu was the younger of the men, and he doesn't speak until later, and he tells us why he didn't speak in chapter 32, verse 4. It says Elihu had waited to speak to Job because, why? They were years older than he was, and he wanted to listen to them. He gave them the honor and the respect of going first as they were addressing Job and all the things that were going on with him. Look at Leviticus chapter 19. As a part of God's law that was given in the Old Testament, respect for those who were older was required. In chapter 19, verse 32, you shall rise up before the gray-headed and honor the aged. Rise up, meaning stand up, show them respect, and honor the aged, and you shall revere your God. I am the Lord. So in the same breath as he says, revere God, he says, honor older people. Look at Ephesians chapter 6, verse 1. Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Again, it's a younger, older, and children are to honor and respect their parents, partly because they're older than they are, and they have more experience. 1 Timothy chapter 5. Do not sharply rebuke an older man, but rather appeal to him as a father. Show him the respect that he deserves. And to the younger men as brothers. A couple of Proverbs. Look at Proverbs chapter 20. Proverbs chapter 20, verse 29. The glory of young men is their strength. True. And the honor of old men is their gray hair. It's a metaphor for wisdom, right? Proverbs 16, verse 31. A gray head is a crown of glory. It is found in the way of righteousness. There's value in age because it comes with wisdom. And we need to respect that. We need to honor that. And the scriptures are clear all throughout Old, New Testament, doesn't matter. We find the same theme over and over again. And older people are often associated with wisdom. The two are connected together. You go back to Job and look at chapter 12, verse 12. It's not always the case. Just because we're old doesn't mean we will automatically be wise. But a person who's lived his entire life and has, as the psalmist said, he's never seen the righteous forsaken, has an opportunity to be a lot wiser than somebody who isn't, because he has the experience with the Lord. In Job chapter 12, verse 12, wisdom is with aged men, and with long life is understanding. Wisdom associated with age. Look at 1 Kings chapter 12. 1 Kings 12, verse 6. Oh, I'm in 2 Kings. That's not the right one. So this is just an example. We see this all in many of the lives of the kings of Israel. King Rehoboam, it says, consulted with the elders who had served his father Solomon while he was still alive, saying, "How do you counsel me to answer this people?" Unfortunately, Rehoboam didn't listen to his elders, and he went the opposite direction. But with age comes wisdom, knowledge, understanding. And God, for his part, never stops caring for us all through our life, and especially as we grow older. Look at Ruth chapter 4. Joshua judges Ruth. Love this statement. So speaking about Naomi, Ruth's mother-in-law, in verse 13 of chapter 4, it says, "So Boaz took Ruth, and she became his wife, and he went into her, and the Lord enabled her to conceive. And she gave birth to a son. And then the women said to Naomi, 'Blessed is the Lord, who has not left you without a redeemer today, and may his name become famous in Israel. May he also be to you a restorer of life and a sustainer of your old age. For your daughter-in-law who loves you is better to you than 7 sons, and has given birth to him.'" So God takes care of us right into the older years. Isaiah chapter 46, verse 4. God says, "Even to your old age I will be the same. And even to your graying years I will bear you. I have done it, and I will carry you. I will bear you, and I will deliver you." Those are directly aimed at us as we age, as we get older. God will never leave us and never forsake us. He will continue to minister to us and be with us and provide for us from beginning to end. From our birth to our death, God will do that. Psalm 71, verse 9. Here's the prayer of one who is older, who says, "Do not cast me off in the time of old age. Do not forsake me when my strength fails." And God won't. He will continue to strengthen us. And as we age, the instruction for older people who know the Lord is to never stop serving, to never stop thriving, to never stop learning about the Lord. Look at Psalm 92, verse 12. "The righteous man will flourish like the palm tree. He will grow like a cedar in Lebanon. Trees take years to become established and to grow into full maturity. Planted in the house of the Lord, they will flourish in the courts of our God. They will still yield fruit in old age. They shall be full of sap and very green, to declare that the Lord is upright." It doesn't matter how old we are. We are to continually declare the truths of God, and that God is good. The Lord is upright. Back in Psalm 71, verse 18. Psalm 71, 18. "Even when I am old and gray, O God, do not forsake me until I declare your strength to this generation." In other words, give me the strength to keep on keeping on. Give me the strength to keep on talking about your goodness and your strength to this generation, right up until I'm gone. "To declare your power to all who are to come. For your righteousness, O God, reaches to the heavens. You who have done great things. O God, who is like you?" Coming from the lips of an old man here. And this is all in spite of what we know happens when we age. Right? Physically, we decline as we age, the closer we get to death. Ecclesiastes Chapter 12 is... I remember the first time I read this, I had no clue what it was talking about. When I finally figured it out, I was like, oh. Ecclesiastes 12, remember your Creator in the days of your youth, before the evil days come and the years draw near, when you will say, I have no delight in them. Before the sun and the light and the moon and the stars are darkened. In other words, before I lose my sight. And the clouds return after the rain. It's like my health issues just keep coming. They don't go away. In the day that the watchmen of the house tremble, my hands begin to shake. And the mighty men stoop, I start to bend over. And the grinding ones, my teeth stand idle because they're few. And those who look through the windows, my eyes grow dim. And the doors on the street are shut as the sound of the grinding mill is low. I can't hear very well anymore. And one will arise at the sound of the bird. I don't sleep like I used to. And all the daughters of song will sing softly. Can't hear as well. And furthermore, men are afraid of high places. I don't go up on the ladders as high as I used to, or as quickly as I used to. And the terrors of the road. You know, I can get out there and drive to Boston or drive in New York City or drive wherever I need to, but there's going to come a time where I'm not going to want to do that anymore because I just don't want to have to pay attention like I used to. And the almond tree blossoms, the gray hair. The grasshopper drags himself along. The caperberry is ineffective, for a man goes to his eternal home while mourners are in the street. Remember him before the silver cord is broken and the golden bowl is crushed, and on it goes. It's just, all these descriptive metaphors of what it means to age. Psalm 90, verse 10. As for the days of our life, they contain 70 years, or if due to strength, 80 years. Yet their pride is but labor and sorrow, for soon it is gone and we fly away. Who understands the power of your anger and your fury according to the fear that is due you? So teach us to number our days, so that we may present to you a heart of wisdom. So this, we all realize there's going to come a time when we're unable to do what we once did. We're no longer working, earning, no longer able to do what we could with the strength that we had when we were younger. But we never retire from godly living. We never retire from trusting the Lord. We never retire from serving the Lord. We never retire from being a vital part of the body of Christ. And that's what Titus is teaching us here in chapter 2. So, there's spiritual growth instructions for older men, and there's spiritual growth instructions for older women. Let's take a look at them as we look at these three verses this morning. First, older men in verse 2. Older men are to be temperate, dignified, sensible, sound in faith, in love, in perseverance. Older men are to live exemplary lives before the Lord, before the church, and before the world. As we grow older, life can become hard to accept, less fulfilling, less satisfying in a way, more disillusioning. It's easy, I would say, to become entrenched in habits that are not God-honoring. No longer attending, no longer praying, no longer reading. Spending our days in front of the TV, wasting them away. The earlier years of being responsible, earning money, raising a family, giving to society, and in some ways you could say they've ended. And so it would be easy to fall into sinful habits. I've only got a few years left, might as well just kick back and not do anything. Complacency, lethargy, self-centeredness are behind those thoughts. A lack of zeal. And it becomes easy to justify these behaviors by convincing ourselves or saying to ourselves things like, well, I've worked hard all my life. I've already done it, and now I deserve to be lazy. I'm not needed anymore. I don't have the energy and vitality I once had, so I have the right to give up. And those are lies. We all deal with the aging bodies that we have, yes, but these things are sin no matter how old we are. As long as we have breath, we have not only the opportunity but the responsibility to live for the Lord. And we need to take it seriously. Falling prey to the philosophy that my life is all about me, my relaxation, my time, my money, my retirement. No. Romans chapter 14, remember what it says in verse 8. Romans 14:8. For if we live for the Lord. Or if we die for the Lord. So whether we live or die, we are the Lord's. And that's why Titus gets really specific in here and says, you older men, keep on going. Be temperate, be dignified, be sensible, be sound in your faith, be sound in your love, be sound in your perseverance, and let other people see this. And so let's take a look at those things one at a time. Temperate. Older men are to be temperate. That's the word that literally means free from intoxication, not drunk. And it's certainly common to see older men in our society become drunks. Just turn to the bottle and kind of bury all the sorrows of life away. Way to deal with depression, but it shouldn't be the way for one who belongs to Christ. Not at all. And metaphorically, to be temperate means to be someone who's moderate, not given to extremes one way or the other, either in behavior or thinking. And being temperate is of tremendous value to the church because it should be the older men who are temperate in their thinking. As we decide what we're going to do as a church, where we're going to go, ministries we're going to get involved with, there's all kinds of temptations to go this direction or that. But temperance is important, to not just run after the extremes, and temperance should be a characteristic and a quality of older men in the church, and to listen to the advice that comes from that. Youth carries with it great strength and enthusiasm. It really does. But that strength and enthusiasm can easily be misplaced. It needs to connect together with the temperance of older men. Young people need help. They need wisdom. They need guidance. Proverbs tells us this. With youth is naivety. With age is wisdom. And so the wisdom of older people need to connect with the naivety of young men who often lack sense, even though they're full of energy. And that wisdom comes in large part from the older men in the church. Older men are to be temperate. A temperate man has his priorities in order. He's satisfied with fewer things and simpler things. His relationship to the Lord is one of trust because he's